What I came to realize was that I can't recover from my addiction just by being abstinent physically. That every time I'd been abstinent, even for my addictive foods, for even that 5-year period, was still looking for the next fix.
Food Addiction is a podcast which explores the disease of food addiction and presents the solution. We interview professionals and counselors who specialize in the disease of food addiction, and we interview individuals who have successfully recovered from food addiction and discuss how they did it. Esther Helga Goodmans-Dotier was motivated to change careers after she recovered from food addiction by opening a food addiction treatment center and the InFact School, the world's first and only sugar and food addiction counseling training, which offers a recognized certification. Check out the website for more information on obtaining this certification, as well as proven recovery programs at infactschool.com. Listen to these episodes as we discuss the problem and the solution around food addiction. This is the Food Addiction, the Problem, and the Solution podcast. I'm Susan Branscombe. I am a recovered food addict and the host of this InFact School podcast. Today on the podcast, we host guest Doris R, who identifies as a recovered food addict. Welcome, Doris.
Thanks, Susan.
Yeah. Looking forward to hearing your story and how you recovered, and may add a few of my own experiences along the way here. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to share your story and how you recovered. We are going to start by just, if you could, talk about your childhood, how you grew up. We'll talk about your food use as a child too. So if you can let us in on what your childhood was like.
Okay. Well, let's see. I am the oldest of 5 children. My father was an alcoholic, although I didn't know what an alcoholic was. My mother was, I suspect, was a workaholic. And in retrospect, she clearly had an unhealthy relationship with food. I always knew that she was fat. And sometimes that I could see that she was embarrassed about it. And it kept her from doing some things that other mothers maybe did. I had a lot of responsibility as a child. Of the 5 of us, mother worked at night and slept during the day. Dad he wasn't available. I mean, if he was home, he really wasn't there. And so I was in charge of a lot of things. So a lot of responsibility.
How old were you then when you were taking care of your younger siblings?
Oh, the first time I remember was in about 3rd grade. So I would have been maybe 8.
Yeah, 8 or 9.
Or maybe even younger than that, because I remember when my brother was born. I have one brother of the 5 of us, and he's 6 years younger. And he actually died a year ago of an addiction.
I'm sorry.
So, yeah, it was hard. But anyway, I remember when he was born, because my dad handed me the phone when the doctor called to say, "Here, you talk to the doctor." So I was probably 6 years old.
Oh.
And then after him, there was another child born. So I always just felt responsible. Sometimes I would stay home from school to take care of one of the sick little ones. If mom was sick and away, she had to go to the hospital once. I remember I was out of school for about 2 weeks taking care of the little ones.
Wow, that's a lot of responsibility, very young.
And I felt it. It's one of the great things about recovery is I've learned how to play.
Yeah.
So I think I was more of an adult when I was a kid and more of a kid as an adult, which is great.
I love that. Yeah. I was a hyper responsible kid too, but I didn't have that kind of responsibility. I mean, you're 9 years old, you're taking care of the little ones, your dad's not around, your mom's working at night and sleeping during the day. It's a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility on a young girl.
No wonder my brother tells me I was bossy. He said, "You're so bossy."
I'm sure
Well,
you
yeah,
had to be.
that was my job, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure you had to be. So you had
Uh,
addiction in your with your parents. It sounds like your mom might have been one of us, food addict.
mhm.
Uh, how much was she obese? She carried
Yes,
extra weight.
she
Okay,
was. She
okay,
was, and she was.
yeah.
She was always trying to lose weight.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I actually remember this one dress that she had, and she wore it to some event. She came to something, and she had on this new dress, and it was black and gold and white. And I remember her being so proud because it was a size 16. That was like her
Oh,
smallest
okay,
size. Mhm.
yeah. Wow. Yeah, addiction, we know runs in our families. It sounds like you say she was a workaholic. So that's a behavior addiction.
Mhm.
And it sounds like that was her, where she went in her addiction, and then the food. And your dad was an alcoholic. So we know from studies that genetically, the predisposition to addiction runs in families genetically and in
Mhm.
the environment. You see your parents and how they cope with life using behavior addictions and substance abuse, substance use addictions like alcohol and food. So, I have in my notes about you. We talked earlier that you say your first diet was in the fourth grade. Talk about what it was like eating as a child, and when did you know you didn't eat like other kids?
Oh, you know, I don't think I ever ate like other kids.
Hmm.
And part of taking care of little ones was satisfying their tastes and eating extra as I fed them. And so I remember the first diet was there was this kid at school who he gave me the nickname Walrus, and that was really painful.
Sure.
And I thought, yeah, I always knew I was chubby, and that we bought if we got new clothes, we went to the I don't remember what they called them then, chubby clothes or something, and that uh, let's see, the he called me that, and I thought, oh my gosh, I really need to do something about this. And I was as sneaky about restricting food as I was about eating extra food.
Mm.
I remember the shame already at that young age of I don't want anybody to see how I eat or how I don't eat. And so I think that was my first experience with restricting. And I would sneak and read magazines that had the latest diet in them. And then I would do it and not tell anyone that I was dieting. I just, oh, I'm just not hungry. I'm just this. And I would read about exercises I could do. And I remained a little chub until about between seventh and eighth grade.
Mm. What? How old were you when the other student called you a walrus?
I was I was in second grade, so probably about
Oh,
7 or 8 years old.
and were you overweight, do you
Oh,
think, at that time?
well, when I look at pictures, yeah, I was.
Mhm.
I'm sure I was.
You had said in our conversation earlier that you were embarrassed. It sounds like that's what you were embarrassed about, having about what you had to do to lose weight and try to control your weight.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was like I always wanted my concern about my weight to be a secret.
Mm.
Like somehow, if nobody knew that I was worried about it, I don't know. They would think
Yeah.
better of me. They would think maybe I had a metabolic disease, or I have
Yeah.
no idea. But, I used to have fantasies. Well, if I got really sick, I would lose weight.
Yeah, I did that. I did that too. Yeah. It's kind of like, oh, I
Mhm.
have the flu. Well, I'm going to probably lose 4 or 5 pounds.
Right.
That would be, yeah. And I
Mhm.
remember this. This is something you're bringing up that I remember now, that I remember being on diets and not wanting people to know what I was doing. to lose weight and to take some pounds off. It was like my own secret. And I remember my parents taking diet pills away from me because I was really irritable when I was 16. Dextrim, if you remember Dextrim,
Yes,
over-the-counter
I do.
diet pills.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
there were other stages in this whole weight loss game. I think when you and I talked before, I told you about I lost weight between seventh and eighth grade. And when I went back to school in the fall after having lost weight over the summer, teachers and other people just remarked at how pretty I looked. And I thought, this is it. The secret to being liked by other people and noticed in a good way. There are two ways. One is to be pretty, and the other is to be smart.
Yeah. And thin, right?
Mm-hmm. And
Pretty,
so,
thin, and smart.
very thin and smart. So
Yeah.
I worked very hard at being smart, but I also didn't want people to know I was smart because I thought, well, if they think I'm too smart, they won't want to. They won't want me as their friend. And I also remember telling my mother, I was young, maybe not even 10 years old. I told her I wanted a set of encyclopedias because if I read the whole thing, I would be smart.
I remember encyclopedias.
I know. Do they still make those? Yeah.
I think so, but I think they're online now.
I do too, Susan. So anyway, so that was one weight loss experience. And then another one was, it was probably about my senior year in high school. And in the olden days, in gym class, you had to get naked and take a shower with all the other girls.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember I was 5 feet tall. Now I'm 4'11", but I was 5 feet tall then. And I remember I weighed 125 pounds. And these girls saw me in my birthday suit and said, I heard him say, if they looked like me, they would have to lose weight.
Oh.
And so I was off to the races again. So when I graduated from high school, I went away to college. And between the time I got there in September and the time it was time to go home on Christmas break in December, my weight was about 100 pounds. I starved myself that first term in college so that when I went home, I would be thin.
Yeah. Did your parents worry about you? It doesn't sound like sounds like your dad was kind of checked out, but did your mother worry about you and your weight? No. Okay.
Mm-mm. No.
Yeah.
I think she worried. She wasn't vocal about it, but I could tell that she didn't like my being overweight and sometimes would let me go on a diet with her.
Oh, okay. How old were you then?
I think the first time was right around 10 years old.
Okay.
Which amazes me because she was a nurse.
Yeah, that's awfully young to be restricting. Yeah. Did you get the high when you restricted? That sort of dizzy high of restricting?
I don't remember that until I was older. So I don't remember it as a young person. Maybe by college age I did.
Yeah, let's talk about your high school, college, young adults. Sounds like, did you continue to use diets to try to control your food intake and your weight?
I did until I didn't.
Okay.
I mean, it's like I could diet up to a certain point. I would lose weight, and milestones are really dangerous for me. If I set a goal weight and I reach it, then I have permission to not diet anymore.
Eat whatever you want because it'll stay off, right?
If I want, or if I diet, or I would set a time frame. I can do this from now until my birthday, because on my birthday I have to weigh X amount, and I made up these weights in my head. So, and doctors, when I would talk to a physician, I never talked to a physician about my weight until I was a grown up. self-supporting adult. It was too embarrassing. It was just too embarrassing to to say to someone, "I know I'm overweight. Can you help me?" I don't know. I couldn't do it.
Well, they talked to me about my weight. I don't know if your doctors talked to you about your weight, but when you weigh 70 pounds more than you're supposed to, I had diabetes and high blood pressure. I don't now, but they talked to me about my weight. Did you have doctors caution you
Oh
about your
yes.
weight? Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And like you, I have diabetes and blood pressure. And this I don't know if is it okay to say a number? Like, can I give you my A1C?
Yes.
Well, since recovery, I just had my blood work done and my A1C was 4.9 without medication.
That is excellent. Mine is like 5.1, and
That's
it was at
awesome.
one time 7
Yeah, mine
something.
too. Mine too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
So
thought,
obesity
oh,
related,
yeah,
obesity related
diseases.
illnesses like high blood pressure, diabetes can go away if we do something preventative, like good nutrition, eating no sugar and highly processed foods, right?
It's amazing. And I had to put what was it? Yes, I work a 12-step program, and one of the steps is the fourth step, and one of the things we have to write down is our resentments. Well,
Yes.
one of my resentments was against myself that I gave myself diabetes and high blood pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
was convinced I did that.
Yeah.
Then I thought, oh, this meal plan that the doctor gave me for my diabetes, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to lose weight if I eat this meal plan. Well, yeah, but but not when you break it. And so, yeah,
No, you
that's my.
gotta follow it.
It was like being, like the little hamster on the treadmill.
Yeah.
Go until you meet a goal, and then get off. And
Yeah. I did event dieting. I wore my mother's wedding dress for my wedding in 1982.
oh,
And 2 weeks before, they were doing alterations on the dress and they couldn't zip it up. And it was a little size 6, just she was smaller than me. My dad was the food addict and alcoholic. And I was probably 15 pounds overweight. And I just, from that point to my wedding date, I ate yogurt and bananas. And I lost weight. And I didn't know if I was going to fit into that dress until the day of my wedding, and they zipped it up.
oh my goodness.
So
Yeah.
I know about event dieting and like, okay, when I get married or when I go here or when I go to this event or that event, I need to be down 25, 40 pounds, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I also know is after that first semester in college where I dropped my weight, then over time through college and through my first job after college, um, I gained, oh my gosh, I gained a lot of weight. I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember all my weights, but I know that I went from 100 pounds to 165 pounds just during a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, we can put weight on quickly when we're using food. And it sounds like you were a volume eater.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I have in my notes that your weight got up to how high to?
I think the highest I know of was 210 pounds. I stopped weighing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't want to know.
Yeah, sometimes it gets higher, but we don't know because we don't want to step on the scale. Mine got up to 203, and you're short like me. So it's a lot of weight. I show that in my notes that you were a size 22. Is that right?
Correct.
Mm. Well, we use diets to control our food, and then we realize that diets can work for a while until they don't work anymore because we're food addicts and we go back to the food to sort of manage our lives. Talk about your trigger foods, sugar, and did you eat food alone in isolation?
Oh my goodness. My whole life was a secret, Susan.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I would go out with friends to eat, and I ate like I thought normal people ate.
yeah,
So if they had a slice of something, I had a slice of something. I just watched them and kind of did what they did. But
right.
I would often, I also am recovered from alcohol.
Yep,
And
me too.
so, yeah. And so I knew, um, I did like what I did with alcohol. I drank before the party, and then I
Yes.
drank like what I thought was a lady at the party. And then I went home and sat with my bottle all by myself, alone in the dark, and ended my
Yes.
party and passed out. I
Yeah.
did that with food. I cannot tell you how many nights I ate myself to sleep.
Mm.
Just
Yeah.
ate myself to sleep. And I became afraid. I'm a widow. And after the kids left home and I was alone, I would still, I would get out of bed to eat at night. I'd go to bed and think, oh, I can't sleep. I better get up and eat. And what started out as a snack ended up as a 15-course extravaganza of junk.
A
And
binge.
then I would have to empty the garbage because if I died at night, I didn't want anyone to come into my house and see the garbage I'd been eating.
Yeah, that's food addiction behavior. I used food to wake myself up at the end of the day, to assuage anxiety, to put myself to sleep at night.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I was a nocturnal eater. So 2:00 in the morning, if I couldn't get back to sleep, I would go to the fridge and eat.
Right.
And it worked because, of course, the blood from your head goes to your stomach and you get sleepy when you eat. And so I did that. I used food to wake up. I used it to sleep, just like you.
And the other thing, now that you're saying that, I'm thinking is that it didn't even matter what the food was. It got to
Yeah.
the point where it didn't matter. But I would gravitate toward things that were either sweet or salty and crunchy,
Yes, crunchy was important.
or fat foods like ice cream,
Mm-hmm.
full
Yeah.
fat cheese, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Fat, sugar, carb combination were pretty magical. I mean, it was like
Right.
cookies and cakes and ice cream and candy. And
Those things.
so, yeah.
One of the wonderful things about recovering is also that my shopping cart looks different.
Yeah.
And when I'm in the market, I used to hide from people I knew because I didn't want them to look in my grocery cart.
Right.
Now it's okay with me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When did you get sober from alcohol?
34 years ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks.
It will be 12 years for me, actually pretty soon, June 1st.
Yay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yay.
I don't know about you, but they were both my things. I went to alcohol when I wanted to get happy or help, anxiety or depression. I used food in the same way. So when I got sober, I really began using food.
Oh, me too, Susan.
Yeah. I got sober using food. And so, but then I had to hit the food and recover from that too. Talk about your story there.
That's exactly what happened. When I work a 12-step program for alcoholism, and I would I would stay free from alcohol when I was meeting with a group, and then on the way home, I would stop at the store and get my favorites, the cookies, ice cream, whatever, and I could eat a whole baguette. And whoever gets one donut? Does anyone really do that?
Normal eaters do. I've seen my husband eat a half a donut. I mean,
so I would volunteer to bring them to work on refreshment day, but I had to always get 2 dozen, one for them and one for me. It's just, that's how it was. And I did not know I was addicted. I did not know.
Yeah.
I thought I was just nuts or something was wrong.
We look at our parents too. I don't know if you did this, but like, I've got fat relatives. I'm going to be fat. Can't do anything about it. I've tried diets. I just haven't found the right diet. I mean, I went through all of that, but I did the same thing you did. I would go to 12-step recovery meetings, and on the way home, I'd stop at a McDonald's for their sausage burritos. I'd get 2. They're really cheap.
I do know.
They're good. They were good too.
And what do
So,
you mean you don't sell milkshakes here?
yeah, like what else you got? I mean, drive-throughs are the perfect place for a food addict because you can remain largely anonymous. You have to pay for, you get your food, pay for it, but you stick it in your car, and nobody knows. Except we wear this disease, right? I mean, we people can see, even though you eat moderately around your friends, just like
Hmm.
you're talking about, you match their eating. They're like, I don't know why you're overweight. You don't eat very much, but they don't know about the secret behavior, right?
Exactly. And, in my drinking days, I would go bar hopping.
Hmm.
But in my food addict days, I would go drive through hopping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've
And
done it. Yeah.
once I was maybe I told you this, once I was let go from a job, and the first thing I did was go get in my car and make rounds through drive-throughs that I knew had chocolate milkshakes. I don't know how many I downed, but that was going to cure the blues, right?
Yeah, yeah. Frosties at Wendy's. I've been there. Well,
Hmm.
let's start by talking about some recovery. You had said that before we start with that, you had said that you could accept being a compulsive overeater more than you could being an addict, and there was something about being an addict that was somehow more. I don't know. More there was more shame around it than compulsive overeater. Talk about that.
Right. And I think in retrospect, it was a control thing.
Mm,
I I believe that if I continued to think I was a compulsive overeater and not an addict, that somehow I could have control over it.
mm.
I could control my behavior. I was such a discipline. I really was very disciplined in other aspects of my life.
Yeah,
And
me too.
so, and I don't think I really believed in the idea of food addiction. What does that mean to be addicted to a food? And what I know now is that all addicts are compulsive eaters, but not
Yeah,
all compulsive eaters are food addicts. And so when it was pointed out to me, just like you did a few minutes ago, what were my trigger foods? When it was pointed out to me, I had a physical reaction. I
yeah,
got high on sugar.
yeah.
Yeah,
I did too. There was a change in my brain. There's something, the dopamine response in my brain when I ate something with sugar, something with fat, my
right.
trigger foods. I had a long list of foods I'd binged on. And yeah, there was a physical change. And then the cravings would start.
Right. And what I've learned is that when I have a craving, the worst thing I can do is feed it
Yes.
because it increases it gets the dopamine going again.
Yeah, but you can't stop on
I
your own.
can't
There's where the
stop.
powerlessness comes in.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's talk about recovery. You talked about, that you were white knuckling it for years. It sounds like you got sober 34 years ago, but your recovery into your food addiction didn't really happen until later. But
Right.
you said white knuckling it, and that's what we say. What does that mean to you that you
Oh,
hadn't really fully hit bottom?
it meant even though I was abstinent, I'm thinking about 20, a little over 20 years ago, I started working a 12-step program for food.
How long ago?
About over 20 years ago, probably
Okay.
in however many years ago 1992 was.
Okay. Yeah,
And
92 was almost 32 years ago. My son was
that's a
born
long
that
time
year.
ago. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
So you started
anyway,
working a 12-step recovery for food addiction or your compulsive overeating at that time.
right. And I didn't know it was food addiction, but I wound up there because I was seeing a therapist. It was, I saw a lot of therapists because I thought maybe they could fix me. And and
I did too.
I
They
wound
didn't.
up with one who told me, she said, she told me that she suffered from food addiction, and she told me about a treatment program she had gone to, and she gave me a copy of the plan of eating that she used,
Hmm.
and she didn't call it a diet, she called it a food plan. And
Right.
And she gave it to me. And she said, now this probably looks overwhelming, but if you she told me what to cut out initially. And then she suggested some places I might go to get into 12-step recovery for food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I did. And she was so wonderful. She said, well, some of the meetings you might not like, you should go shopping. Treat it like a shopping trip. So
Right. Try them
anyway,
out.
yeah, it was great. So anyway, I went, and Susan, I was so depressed. There are times when I slept in my clothes and I went to a meeting in the clothes I'd slept in,
Mm.
hadn't taken a shower, brushed my teeth, probably for weeks, a week or more.
Mm.
I mean, it was horrible.
Yeah. So your
And
personal hygiene was declining. What was your, how much extra weight were you carrying at that time, do you think?
um, oh, a lot,
Yeah.
about 100 pounds.
Yeah.
And so over a 5-year period, I was abstinent as defined by me. Pretty much
Which
using
was,
pretty much the food plan she had given me.
yeah, she gave you a food plan and you cut out what? You cut out sugar and
No
flour?
sugar, no flour. Um, and then the food was weighed and measured. I'm a volume eater, and so
Yeah.
we weighed the portions of food that I had,
Mm-hmm.
and I ate 4 times a day, and it was plenty of food, plenty of food.
Yeah.
And so, in fact, I thought, how will I ever lose weight on this amount of food?
Yeah, I thought
But
that too. Let me ask you, so this food plan was given to you, and we're going to talk about Shift Recovery by Acorn
okay,
and your work there. We're going to mention them. They are one of our podcast sponsors, foodaddiction.com. We're going to go there, but it sounds like somebody that may have gone through Shift gave you the food plan they were using. Is that
yes,
right?
yes, she went through a predecessor of Shift, and
Acorn.
An
Okay.
inpatient program, and that was the
Mm-hmm.
food plan she gave me. So, and it's pretty much how I eat today.
Yeah. But
Mhm.
you had the food plan and you say you were abstinent according to you. What weren't you doing that was according to the food plan?
Well, I stopped weighing and measuring things. Um, I started experimenting with food, but that was after 5 years. And what at the in that at somewhere during that 5-year period, maybe along about 4 years, I had a cancer diagnosis,
Mm.
and I lost a lot of weight through treatment. In
Okay.
fact, my weight got down to 70 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I
I'm
couldn't.
sorry.
Yeah,
How's
I
your
couldn't.
health today?
It's great.
Good.
It's great. But I
I
couldn't
see your
even get in.
smile.
I couldn't get into a car by myself. Someone actually carried me up steps. It was horrible. But
Oh,
at any rate, when the doctor said to me basically that I could eat whatever I wanted to, and I was now feeling better and getting
yeah.
well, boy, that was a license to commit self murder.
Katie, bar the doors. You can eat whatever
Ex-
you want. You're 70
ex-
pounds. Let's eat,
exactly. And
right?
just, yeah. And it took no time to get up to 170. I mean, really,
Oh, wow.
you know what an addict's like. And so,
Yes, I do. I
yeah,
am one. So
yeah. So,
talk about talk about entry into Shift Recovery by Acorn, foodaddiction.com, one of
uh,
our sponsors.
well, good
Talk
job.
about when you got in there and talk about what happened then.
Okay. Well, after this 5 years of abstinence and then like 20 or however many more years of in and out and in and out,
Yeah.
and my weight got up to, I don't know, well over 210 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to go back to a 12-step program for overeaters
Yes.
and compulsive eaters. And I did during the pandemic.
Mm.
I wasn't brave enough to walk into a room. So I started
Okay.
going back
So you
on
went on
Zoom
Zoom.
meetings, did Zoom meetings. I had us worked through the 12 steps and was abstinent again using my same food plan I'd used before for about 18 months. And then I started playing games.
Yeah.
And my weight was, I don't remember how much I weighed, maybe about 135, 140 pounds. And I started playing games. For example, did you know that almond flour isn't really flour? Or did you know that, honey isn't really sugar? Those sorts of things. And I could make all sorts of wonderful concoctions using so-called safe food.
Yeah.
I knew I was headed for trouble. So I remembered this therapist who'd been treated and gave me her food plan. And I tried to remember the name of it, and I did. And I went on Google, and that's when I found Shift by Acorn. So there's this, it said that you could call for a free 30-minute consultation. And I did. And I talked to the most wonderful woman, and I drank the Kool-Aid, and I signed up.
Not drinking the Kool-Aid. Yeah.
By not drinking the Kool-Aid. So,
right. Was that Amanda?
The woman I talked to was someone else. Her name was Andrea. But yes, and then I went to the, they call it an intensive, the intensive treatment I went to because it was during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I went
5-day intensive on virtually, right? You did it virtually. Yeah.
And then we had about, I think, 7 weeks of aftercare.
Yes.
And I am still working with them. And it's a whole different ballgame. I actually got it that I'm an addict.
Yeah.
During that 5-day intensive program, I absolutely got that I was an addict. And when I saw what the plan needed to be for me to recover as an addict, I thought, what did I sign up for?
Right.
Oh, get me out of here. But I made a commitment, and by golly, I was just going to live up to that commitment no matter what.
That's kind of the way I do things too. And I went through Shift Recovery by Acorn before the pandemic in May of 2019, right after Amanda Leith bought the business from Phil and Mary Wardell. So I know what went on there. I participated as a student, so I got to see how things went. I wasn't doing it to recover, but it's a great, great program. I was in Phil's leadership training program for a while, and so that's why I did it. But Amanda was there, and she led the intensive. But I think it would be good for the listeners to know what happened with you there, because what I'm hearing is people were giving you their food plans. Okay, Doris, here's a food plan. Here's a food plan. It's really just approaching this problem we have with the diet, right? And this is a program of recovery. It's about really realizing that we can't control it, right? And talk about what happened there in the surrender.
What I came to realize was that I can't recover from my addiction just by being abstinent physically. That every time I'd been abstinent, even for my addictive foods, for even that 5-year period, my brain was still looking for the next fix. And I came to understand that during that 5 days, that not only was I addicted to certain foods, there was a way to deal with that addiction, but I would have to do things that I'd never done before. I never wanted the kind of support that Shift offers, because that support meant there was something wrong with me, and people would know that I had a problem, and that in my mind, help, H-E-L-P, was a 4-letter word, and it was a pretty nasty one. So to what I know today, like over 2.5 years since I went through that intensive, is that I would not be who I am today without leaning on that support. And the support is amazing. So as a result of the 5 days, I think the biggest takeaway for me there was I'm an addict. I'm about to take this journey, and I'm hopeful about where it will go. And I'm desperate. I'm just desperate. I think we talk about hitting a bottom.
Yeah.
I think I'd hit a bottom. And I've heard that there are two things that are necessary for entering recovery. One is desperation.
Mm-hmm.
And I clearly had that. And the other was hope. But I'm not so sure I had hope.
You had willingness.
I had willingness. Yeah, in fact, that was one of the things that we were asked when we left the 5-day intensive. We made an aftercare plan. And then Amanda asked us, so what on that list do you not want to do?
Perfect.
Oh, take half of my list, right? No, I don't want to have a sponsor. I don't want to weigh and measure my food. I don't want to not eat this and drink that. I don't want to not eat sweeteners and all sorts of things. And then she said, are you willing? For each one of them, she said, are you willing? And in I'm willing. Today, I'm willing today.
I hear surrender. I hear willingness. And, sometimes it takes years for us to reach that bottom, thinking that we just haven't found the right diet. And you sound like me. You don't like to be told what to do, but that's exactly what I needed.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I needed to be told what to do, know.
Come in, sit all the way down, listen up.
Right, sit all the way down, listen, follow directions. So physical recovery since shift, and that was, you said 2.5 years ago you did the intensive?
Mm-hmm. But there's been more to that recovery, way more.
Than physical, yeah. What has been the physical recovery, though, as far as you were volume eater, you weigh and measure now, you have a sponsor. How much weight have you lost and maintained?
Well, I actually am trying to remember what I weighed when I went to the intensive, because I had gone to great lengths to lose weight before that. Because during that 18 months before I said I'm in trouble, I had lost weight. So in shift itself, probably about 30 pounds.
Okay.
And my weight is settled. It's like for the last year, I've been in the same little 5-pound.
Yeah, me too.
Range, which I can't believe that my body can handle. I call it all that food. I eat a lot of food, Susan.
I do too. If you weighed it and looked at how much I ate, I eat 10 ounces of vegetables for lunch and dinner, and limit my carbs. I have fats. My body, whatever my doctor said, whatever you're doing, your body loves it, because the blood work is all good. We're healthy, right? But the physical part of recovery is just part of it. Talk about the emotional, mental, and let's talk about your spiritual program.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, when I went to the intensive, and for a time after that, I've taken numerous courses with shift since then. And and we have worked with Esther at the InFact school.
Yes.
On steps and
she knows
shifts.
You.
So what I learned, I didn't know that I had emotions. I knew I could get sad. I knew I could be depressed. But what do you mean I get angry? Are you kidding me? And so when I saw this list of all these things you could feel, I thought, oh my God, I had to have someone help me name my feelings. One time I was on my way home from work, and I called my sponsor and I said, I'm too depressed to go home. And she said, no, you're not. I think you're mad. You're madder than hell.
Yeah, they say depression just is a response to being angry and not expressing it.
And so I learned all these things about my feelings. And one of the exercises Esther had us do was during the day, just note when you feel something. At the end of the first day, I was shocked When I paid attention, I had a list of over 20 things I felt in one day. And they ran the
Yeah.
gamut from happy, sad, to depressed, to elated, to, how can I be all those things at the same time? Well, they weren't at the same moment. But what I also
But
learned,
you're human.
yeah,
You're human.
and
Yeah.
I learned how much that triggers my addictive behavior. So I did some relapse prevention work with Shift because I knew I was a relapser. And what I learned was that it starts in my brain.
Yeah.
I have a thought, and that triggers a feeling. I think I'm stupid, so I feel inadequate. I feel less than. And that leads to some sort of an urge. Like, well, when I feel bad, what feels good? And I want to comfort myself. I'm addicted to comfort.
Yeah.
And
That's what we did with alcohol and food, right?
absolutely. So I had to find new ways to comfort myself.
Yeah.
And
Which are what?
oh, I can't even believe I'm going to say this. Calling my fellows who are also in recovery.
Yeah.
Because I
I
thought
do that too.
that phone weighed a ton.
Yeah. They're my
Well,
buddies now.
they're
Yeah.
my
Me too.
buddies. So that's one
Yeah.
way. Another way is to walk. I love to
Walk.
go outside and walk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
That's wonderful.
play music. Love music.
Yeah. That's another one of mine. I meditate today. I pray. I pray for other people. I pray for my family.
Right.
And talk about the shift, the transformation spiritually for
Huge.
you.
Yeah. Um, I thought I worked 12 steps for a very long time since I've been in recovery from alcoholism.
Mhm.
When I tried working the 12 steps on food without the support of fellows who are food addicted, I couldn't do it.
Mm.
And talk about a new sense of spiritual connection. There is no doubt in my mind that without some support and a connection to a power other than myself, I couldn't even call it greater than myself at first. It had to be other than myself. Um, it would be impossible. I would have been back into the food the day after the intensive.
Yeah. I hear some ego there, Doris.
Lots of ego, and I didn't even know it was ego. It's like, how can I
Yeah.
possibly have ego when I'm just so inferior? How can I possibly have ego? Well, yeah. I've heard it described as being an egomaniac with an inferiority
Complex. Yes.
Mhm.
I've heard that one before too. But you talk about feeling emotions. I had the same experience. I did not feel my emotions. I was taught as a kid, suck it up, keep moving, keep working harder. You don't need to feel. And it sounds like you had the same experience almost on steroids with being a young girl, having responsibility for your siblings, a lot of pressure and responsibility. And that you probably were not taught that feelings are okay. You just keep working, keep sucking it up.
And I felt the same way about my food issue.
Mm.
There was a lot of shame. And somehow, if I had to fix it myself,
Right.
by myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt that way too. Like, Susan, why can't you control your food and your weight on your own? Why can't you follow a diet, lose 50 pounds and keep it off? Because I'm a food addict, just like I'm an alcoholic.
Exactly. And that's been one of the huge keys to recovery for me, is accepting that I am an addict and that I am powerless over my addiction.
Yeah.
I'm not powerless over how I react.
Right. Taking action around it, being willing, and
that's
doing
what
what people tell you to do. Right.
That's what I've learned at Shift. I've learned how to react to those urges in very different ways.
Right. Yeah, foodaddiction.com, Shift, Recovery by Acorn. They are one of our sponsors. So if anyone listening wants to know more, give them a call and set up a 30-minute consultation, see if it's for you. The intensive is powerful. And I know it. Doris knows it. And just one or two more questions, maybe one, but talk about what your life is like now. How important is your recovery? You do what I do. You weigh and measure. You probably talk to somebody about what you're going to eat. And there's a lot of freedom in it.
I feel like recovery is my life right now.
Yeah.
I wake up in the morning and I start with prayer and meditation. And I always thought I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
So I would, in the shower, if I remembered, I'd say to the God of my understanding, okay, God, help me today. But now it's because, I really do have 15 minutes I can spend in the morning, and the rest of my day goes so much better.
That's true.
I have some exchange with the woman who sponsors me every day, and I do commit my food to her, and I'm accountable. But that's really, it's like food is a part, but it's not it. It's necessary for recovery, but it's not sufficient for me. And so I talk to people on the phone. I make outreach calls. I sponsor other people who are trying to recover, who are working addiction. And I never understood what it meant when people said, you have to work those steps, because I do a step program. I thought, what does that mean? You read them with somebody and then what? Now what I know is I have to practice them.
Yes.
So I have to practice every day, admitting that I'm a powerless. I can't. The God of my understanding and the foot soldiers he surrounds me with can. And I'm going to let him.
Let him. Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
But I do take myself
back.
Take
your will back. You take your will back. Yeah. I do that too. I can tell you're that kind of a strong person, but we found it, right? We found recovery. And there are 12-step programs listed on the InFact School website, infactschool.com. Shift we've talked about in here. So if anybody's listening and you have 150 pounds or 200 pounds to lose, or 60 pounds, or maybe you're not overweight at all, but you use food compulsively, there is a solution. Right, Doris?
Right. There is. Here we are. We're alive and healthy. So, Doris, thanks for joining me today. It's been wonderful to host you, and thank you for being vulnerable, and people will love hearing your story and maybe be inspired. So thank you. Thank you.
This is the Food Addiction Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the podcast and learned more about food addiction. We hope you will rate and write a review on this episode and share it with others. If you or someone you know is suffering from the disease of food addiction, there is a solution. The various food addiction recovery programs available are listed on the website, infactschool.com. Or if you would like to know more about how to get certified in treating food addiction, the InFact School is accepting applications now for its next training. On the website, you will find information about getting trained and certified to treat food addiction. Go to infactschool.com.